Adyashanti, a name that means primordial peace in Sanskrit. Born as Stephen Gray in 1962 in Cupertino, California, Adyashanti emerged as a transformative voice in modern spirituality, bridging East and West, tradition and innovation. His teachings, drawn from Zen Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, challenge seekers to awaken to the truth of their own being. But is his teaching too shallow or lacking true understanding? I will delve into this topic later. Stephen Gray's journey toward spiritual discovery began in the suburban landscape of Northern California. Born on October 26, 1962, Stephen Gray grew up in Cupertino with his parents, Larry and Carol, along with his siblings Tommy, Suzanne, Kyra, and Julie. In the 1960s and early 1970s, Cupertino was a small but growing suburban town with deep agricultural roots. The Valley of Heart's Delight, now Silicon Valley, was still known for its fruit orchards before the tech boom transformed the region. It was a quiet, family-oriented city with fewer than 10,000 residents in the early 60s. It was an ideal environment for a young, inquisitive, and keen listener like Stephen, better known as Steve in his early years. When he was 7 years old, he had a profound realization that people are suffering because they believe their thoughts.
Told this story, and many times when I've taught about being 7 or 8 and being very confused about the adult dimension, about adults.
Yes.
And why they acted the way they did, and it just seemed sort of odd. And one day I just had like insight, and the insight was, I get it. They're crazy. They're crazy. They believe what they think.
Yeah.
And somehow that just kind of came to me. And the interesting thing is when I had that insight, I felt a great relief because I didn't have to think about it anymore. I kind of understood something. It didn't make me, reject anything, or it didn't cause me any anxiety, anything. I just thought, oh, now I understand.
As a teenager, he had a passion for racing bicycles and worked in a bike repair shop, which instilled a discipline and focus that would later serve his meditative practice. But sometimes he pushed himself too hard, and it was not uncommon to have crashes in the tough bike races. In the early 1980s, he encountered Zen Buddhism through the writings of Alan Watts, which sparked a desire to experience enlightenment. This led him to Ram Dass's book, Journey of Awakening, further fueling his spiritual quest. As Adyashanti later recalled,
I realized there was something far beyond what I had been taught about life and identity. It was a realization that shook the very foundation of who I thought I was.
When he was 19, he went to his mother and announced, "My life is over."
It was almost like something in me just exploded, and I just knew, this is it. I have to find out what this is. Mm-hmm. And I woke up one morning and I just knew, that's it. Life as I knew it is over. I don't know what the life to come is going to be, but I know that this pull towards finding out what this enlightenment thing is, it's not something that I can take or leave. It's not something in my control. It's something that kind of grabbed me. And that was a real shift.
I have a blue-collar body. It likes to be worked. I'm a truth guy, not a comfort guy.
He dedicated himself to meditation with the fervor of an athlete in a hut in his parents' backyard, training under the Zen teacher, Arvis Joan. Sometimes his teacher even said he should slow down a bit.
She would often hold her hand up in front of her, and she would just squeeze it and go, too much like this, not enough like this. Too much like this, not enough like this.
Justy, a student of Tyson Mazumi Roshi, taught in her living room, where Gray learned his first lesson about presence and awareness. He recalls,
I kicked my shoes off haphazardly and she stared at them. I realized how little attention I paid to what was happening. When I placed them neatly, she smiled and said, "Welcome."
This experience taught him the importance of being conscious of everything, not just what we consider important. Over the course of 14 years, Stephen rigorously practiced Zazen, studying with Jakasho Kwang Roshi of the Sonoma Mountain Zen Center and working at his father's machine shop. He also spent many hours writing answers to questions that arose spontaneously. This period laid the groundwork for profound realizations that would shape his teachings. At 25, while meditating alone, Stephen experienced a kensho, a direct awakening to the emptiness and unity of all things. He said,
It was if I had been chasing the Buddha outside myself, only to realize it was right here, right now, as me.
All of a sudden I was instantly in a different, I don't even know what to call it, different dimension. I wasn't aware of my body anymore. Absolute darkness, total infinity of black. And I wasn't even there anymore. It was just this infinite, open, sort of black space. And after a while, what I could feel is there was like these insights coming, almost being downloaded through the top of my head into my body. Yeah. Like a computer program was being downloaded. I just thought, well, I guess I get up, and I got up and I turned and I did the bows and I bowed to my Buddha statue figure that I was always there with the incense lit, and I bowed down, and by the time I got my head back up, I was just laughing hysterically. And I just looked at that Buddha and I thought, I've been chasing you for years. And I could see that which I had been chasing was this that was chasing it.
In 1996, at the age of 31, Stephen's teacher encouraged him to begin teaching. Reluctant at first, he adopted the name Adyashanti, primordial peace, to signify the essence of his awakening. His initial gatherings were humble, held in his aunt's garage, sometimes with few or no attendees. His authenticity and clarity slowly drew attention. He emphasized that awakening was not a distant goal but an ever-present reality, accessible to anyone willing to look deeply. At the age of 33, following a difficult breakup, he had another awakening experience. This experience led him to a profound understanding of oneness.
One morning I just sat down to meditate, and again, significant things for me in meditation happened immediately when I would sit down. Almost immediately, not after I got into some wonderful state. And I just heard a bird outside, and I heard the bird, and a question arose from my gut, not from my head. I literally felt it start in my gut and travel up my body and register in the brain. And the question was, who hears this sound? And as soon as that question came up, hit the brain, then there was just the bird, the hearing of it, the hearer of it, all of it was just one thing. There was no separation at all between me, the hearing, the bird, anything. It was just one event.
I had tasted this at 25, but this time there was no elation. It was just factual. I went into the kitchen and realized I was the stove, and in the bathroom, I was the toilet. Paradoxically, I realized that I am nothing, less than nothing, and also what is before nothingness. In the next moment, even that disappeared. The I disappeared completely. All of this, the oneness, the nothingness, and beyond both oneness and nothingness was realized in quick succession. It all exists simultaneously.
His spiritual ego fell away, and what remained was a clear perception of reality that became increasingly ordinary over time. His teachings blend the directness of Advaita Vedanta with the experiential practices of Zen Buddhism. at their heart is an invitation to awaken from the dream of separateness and realize the unity that underlies all existence. As at the heart of his teaching is to help people question their argument with reality, with what is, and also to help them question their whole notion of themselves. It is a down-to-earth philosophy that draws its base from ancient teachings.
Ultimately, everything's a dream, and yet you still have to deal with the body. It's still there. You can call it a dream, but it's still going to hurt if you bump your head.
He stresses the importance of questioning one's illusions and facing reality, rather than mastering spiritual techniques.
Awakening is not an end, but a beginning.
He distinguishes between awakening, the initial realization, and enlightenment, which is the sustained integration of this realization into daily life.
Awakening is like opening a door, but enlightenment is learning to live in the open space on the other side.
He emphasizes that trying to hold on to an initial awakening experience is the best way to lose it, and the process requires a surrender of the ego. Central to his philosophy is the practice of true meditation. Unlike traditional methods focused on control, Adyashanti's approach involves allowing everything to be as it is.
Meditation is not about achieving stillness, but realizing the stillness that is always here, even amidst chaos.
Through this practice, Adyashanti guides seekers to dissolve the unconscious structures that bind them to illusions of identity.
What we call the self is nothing but a collection of stories and beliefs. When those dissolve, what remains is the vast undivided presence of being.
His teachings also encourage a direct inquiry with the question, "What am I really?" This question is not meant to provide a quick answer, but to disassemble all your identities, allowing you to see what you're not. Adyashanti's role within the Western spiritual landscape is significant and unique. Unlike monastic traditions, he speaks directly to the lives of lay practitioners. He encourages a direct encounter with truth, rejecting rigid structures.
Spirituality isn't about adopting a belief system. It's about questioning everything, including your most cherished assumptions.
This sets him apart from traditional Advaita figures like Nisargadatta Maharaja or Ramana Maharshi. While those teachers emphasized self-inquiry and silence, Adyashanti integrates these principles into a framework accessible to modern seekers. He views the ego as a movement of thought that distorts perception rather than something to be eliminated. After awakening, one sees the ego as an illusion, not as something real. But his teaching has also drawn some critique. L. Ron Gardner, a rather provocative writer and sociologist, argue that Adyashanti lacks true enlightenment and merely recycles superficial Neo-Advaita concepts without a deep understanding of mysticism or spiritual transformation. Gardner accuses him of making contradictory statements, claiming enlightenment is ever present, while also offering a path to it. He also sees his approach as overly commercialized. Over time, his gatherings expanded, and by the early 2000s, Open Gate Sangha was established to support his teachings. He also authored several books, including Falling into Grace, The End of Your World and True Meditation, with his foundational teachings found in the Way of Liberation. His retreats and talks, known for their unscripted style, resonate deeply with people from all backgrounds. In April 2014, he was interviewed by Oprah Winfrey on Super Soul Sunday. As of 2023, he lives in the Eastern Sierras with his wife Mukti, an associate teacher at Open Gate Sangha. In October 2023, after decades of teaching, Adyashanti announced his retirement. citing physical challenges and a call to step back. Despite his retirement, Adyashanti's influence continues through his books, recordings, and the community he cultivated. Adyashanti's life and teachings remind us that the path to truth is universal, available in every moment, and ultimately rooted in the courage to surrender to what is.
And yet, it itself has an infinite capacity to reveal itself.
Yes.
We can call that revealing of itself deepening, never ending. Or in the Buddhists would say, always being, always becoming.
Right.
Always being, always becoming.
Visit opengatesangha.org for more on Adyashanti's teachings.